Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Inside the OC podcast. My name is Matt Cannizzaro, coming to you here from Fort Worth, Texas. Once again, another exciting show and a special guest, of course, aren't they all? But first, let me bring in my co-host for today's show from Kentucky, Daniel Ferris. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thanks a lot, Matt. How are things down there in Texas?
Things are good, and just, again, enjoying the opportunity to be able to talk to some of our great champions, and even the research and some of the fact-finding is a whole lot of fun. I spent some time earlier talking to one of our bowlers about the 1996 event in Salt Lake City, recollecting some of the cool things that happened there, and it's really an honor to be able to share these moments with all of our bowling fans out there today. We're going to talk about the 2011 event. In particular, that was kind of the special part of this gentleman, something that we'll have a special guest for as well. An extra special guest, a bonus special guest. Either way, all that coming up in a few minutes. Right now, let's welcome in our friend today, Matt Weggen, coming to us from Iowa. Matt, welcome.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate you asking me to come on.
All right, and of course, we're continuing the tradition for Daniel Ferris to appear on a USBC podcast with somebody or multiple people named Matt, and we appreciate it. So good luck deciphering between the two of us for the next hour. But before we really get going and talking about bowling, Matt, let's catch up a little bit with you and what you're up to there. You mentioned working in the IT world and being able to work from home. Just tell us how things are in your neck of the woods right now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I turned 40 in January. Got a little bit less hair than I had back in 2011. I've been working from home since the middle of March. That was kind of weird getting used to. My wife's also been working from home, so I've been kind of trying to coexist with the kids running around and the dogs. But no, life is pretty good. Things are slowly starting to open back up. Bowling alleys are still closed. I haven't picked up a ball in 9 weeks. That's kind of driving me a little crazy, but weather's starting to get nice. I was able to get out, do a little turkey hunting, get to work in the yard a little bit. So trying to stay positive, and hopefully this virus thing will calm down, and we'll be able to get back to the bowling alley here soon.
All right, now, we did talk to Ron Vokes last week, and him being a Midwesterner as well, it's definitely getting to that time of the year where bowling might kind of be an afterthought for you guys. This year, is that going to be a little bit different? You mentioned the weather already getting nice, getting out to do some other activities. How much bowling do you guys really get to do in the summertime anyway, and how might that be different here in 2020?
Yeah, it usually does shut down. I know a lot of bowling alleys do shut down from at the end of leagues until the start of August. I've been fortunate enough here in Muscatine that our bowling center has had a couple summer leagues the last few years. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but I was able to bowl with my kids the last couple of years and just stay sharp 3 games a week, and just so when full-time leagues come around in tournaments, you're not totally rusty. But I do think some bowling alleys may not open back up in the state. It's really hard to think about that of what your opportunities are going to be for tournaments and leagues. I might have to travel to bowl leagues, farther to bowl tournaments. That's kind of up in the air. But for now, just take it one day at a time, and hopefully come August, this will be an afterthought, and we can get back to bowling every weekend and bowling a couple nights a week.
You mentioned turkey hunting. Obviously, there's a bowling pun there. We avoided it because it's way too easy. But as far as getting out and being able to do things, and I imagine there's some things you've missed, bowling being one of them, but some things you've been able to take advantage of, like hanging out, spending time with the family. How have you guys really filled that time? Being all together, you mentioned being in the same house and trying to kind of divide and conquer the family and the house. But what have you guys been doing that you wouldn't normally do this time of year?
Well, I was kind of down the dumps at first when this whole thing hit. I had an Iowa State tournament coming up, Illinois State Nationals, pretty much my favorite time of the bowling season. I'm gone almost every weekend doing what I love. When all that changed, I was kind of bummed out. But it has brought me and my family closer. We have been doing more activities. We haven't been able to get out and do a whole lot, but I have taken the kids turkey hunting with me a couple times, get them out to experience what I love. And it has been good. I've been trying to take a negative and turn it into a positive, and so far so good. I don't know how much longer I can do it, but the kids have handled things pretty well. They'd like to actually get back to school. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen this year. But yeah, the time has been going faster than I thought it would be. We've been finding activities inside the house, and they've been doing some online school stuff that I've been helping them with a little bit. So that's been nice. We haven't been just sitting here looking for something to do. We've been making the most of things.
Definitely some quality time. And as we move on here to talk about the bowling, just let's catch the folks up on exactly who you are. Some may not know, some newcomers to the event perhaps. And back in 2011, you made a little bit of history by becoming the first bowler in Open Championships history to bowl back-to-back 800s, and that helped you win regular singles and regular all events, a pair of eagles in 1 year. Outside of that, a standout youth bowler in the Midwest, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and multiple-time state champion in Iowa, bowler of the year in the area. That 2011 effort earned you bowler of the year honors, amateur bowler of the year. So very accomplished in a couple of halls of fame as well. Muscatine in 2008 and Iowa State in 2019. So we may not have known much about you on that day, that week in 2011, but certainly very accomplished in your own right. And I saw some posts earlier about whether or not your path to go to the PBA Tour, perhaps. You chose a different path, the family life. Certainly have the ability and the talent. Talk about that and some of the decisions that went into that. That's a huge crossroad for many of us to decide which way we want to go at that time.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people really understood that I did have a pretty decent junior career. I had nine or 10 scholarship tournament wins. My family sacrificed a lot of weekends to take me to tournaments in Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota. We sacrificed a lot. When I was finishing middle school, I was an avid. I was in track. I was in bowling. I was in baseball. I made a decision right before I started high school that I was going to drop everything and commit to bowling, and that basically was my life for a long time. I was every day after school. I'd be down bowling, practicing several games a day. In Muscatine, we're fortunate enough to have Mike Berlin, who is a USBC Hall of Famer, Iowa State Hall of Famer, and an Eagle winner himself. Just a wealth of knowledge, and used him as a big resource to kind of get where I'm at today, to make those steps. And I know you talked a little bit about I did have a decision, coming out when I was done with my youth eligibility when I was 20. I could get my PBA card. I could just decide to bowl regional or just to bowl regionals as an amateur. And it wasn't until I decided. So my first nationals was in 2002. So I did pretty well that year. I think I had 1960, one of my tops besides 2011. And I had decided that following year to dabble in the regionals. So I did get my PBA card. I had that from about 2005 to 2008. And I did all right. I cashed probably 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 for the most part. Those guys are good. And I realized I had some weaknesses in my game, and I had to hit them when I could hit them. And I think I had a high finish of 5th down in Kansas City, Missouri. I got knocked out by Linda Barnes. I still get joked about getting beat by a girl, but hey, if you're going to get beat by a girl, that's the one to do it. But yeah, I decided when I had my first child in 2007 that I really wanted to spend more time home, hit tournaments as I could on the weekend. I do a lot of the Iowa State, Illinois State team stuff. I love that. I've been fortunate enough to grow up and meet a lot of great bowlers through the scholarship tournaments that I still bowl adult stuff with today. So yeah, not saying any of this was the reason that 2011 happened for me, but I think a lot of it led the way to something special happening.
One of the things you mentioned there, Matt, that I want to ask about, you mentioned your game and how when you went out on tour and bowled some of the events with those guys, that you saw some of the weaknesses in your game. I don't want to talk about the weaknesses. I want to talk about the fact of how unique that your game is. And it reminds me of a buddy of mine that I bowled with in college, and our coach always said, I would never teach anyone to throw the ball like Shadow, but he does it the same way every time, and it's so good at the bottom of the release, it works for him. Your game is very unique. How did your physical game turn into what it is?
So when I was 14, I had about 9 or 10 steps, depending on the day on my approach. It was a blur from start to finish to the foul line, and I needed to find something. I decided to move my approach back to 5 steps, and I needed to find some mechanism that I could repeat. And it just kind of started at first that I was just kind of holding the ball up like this. Well, then it turned into I got to do something to set, and it was something that was awkward, and I didn't realize from behind how awkward it really does look, and it still looks today. But it was something that I could repeat, and it was something that would calm me down before each shot. And like you said, my first couple steps are a little funny, but my head stays pretty still. My release is pretty consistent, and my footing, I don't plant quite all the way. I kind of do a half slide, half plant, but I'm pretty balanced and consistent, and something I decided to just go with. It felt right, and the days that it clicked, I had some pretty good bowling with it, so I haven't touched it.
So you said that at the beginning where you're trying, and we'll put a video up in just a couple of minutes of I've got video of you on YouTube from shooting 300 a couple years ago. We'll put that up so the viewers can see exactly what we're talking about. But
Sure.
When you're kind of fidgeting at the beginning, that's just trying to get comfortable. Once you kind of get comfortable and get set, you go.
Yeah, if you notice, like right at the end before I start my approach, I'm pretty still. The wiggling stops, and I'm at that point focused on my target and ready to go. If one thing I could change, and I might still try to as I get a little bit older, is there's times I need to increase a little bit of ball speed, and with that muscle type backswing, it's tough to do that and still maintain control of my accuracy.
All right, folks, for just joining us, we do appreciate it. Thanks for stopping in here, the Inside the OC podcast. My name is Matt Cannizzaro, my co-host Daniel Ferris. Today we're joined by two-time Eagle winner Matt Weggen from Iowa. Of course, Inside the OC means we're going to get inside the OC and talk about all that happens on the tournament lanes. Daniel Ferris is our resident numbers guy. We've got Matt Weggen's record pulled up, all the details. We're going to talk about the good and the bad along the way here. Matt, you already mentioned 2002. Billings, Montana was your first year and a hot start to your career. 1968 was the all events total. First, tell us what or how you got invited or involved in the Open Championships. You were coming off a stellar junior career, had a top finish at Junior Gold, just missed Junior Team USA at one point. So definitely you were ready for the big stage. But for a lot of folks, the story of how they first appeared at the OC is almost as good as many of the other stories along the way.
Sure. I joined men's league in the fall of 2001, and I was fortunate enough to get in a scratch league in town. It had quite a few bowlers that had been competing in the Open Championships for quite a while. So I got to join a team that had decent success. All pretty good scratch bowlers, 220 plus house condition bowlers, and I got invited to make the trip to Billings, Montana with them. I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't know what this was. I don't even think I was sure of what the format was to begin with. I didn't realize it was a team double singles type thing. But we made the drive. This will be an interesting part. We made the drive. My wisdom teeth got infected on the way over. And all I can remember was the excruciating pain and me just trying to block that out while I was bowling. The lanes were pretty decent that week, or that whole tournament. The scores were pretty high. I was fortunate enough to get matched up. I think I had a 700 in doubles. I'm not sure I did so hot in team, but made a little bit of money in brackets, enough to pay for the trip. And I was like, this is something that's fun. It's a vacation. It's something that I can do with friends, enjoy the camaraderie, and make a little money. I said, I'm in. Where do I sign up for next year? And that kind of got me started, and I stuck with those guys. Some of them were senior players at the time, so they only won a few more years. And 2004 is something I wanted to bring up is when I wasn't sure if I was going to find a team. We kind of made a makeshift team out of some guys from the Quad Cities, about a half hour from here. And I started bowling a scratch league up there in Davenport, Iowa. And I got in with Joe Roseman, who's a great friend of mine, Greg Hockett, Brian Kiergaard, who's a PBA regional winner, and a guy from Des Moines, Keith Felton. And it was just a kind of makeshift team, last minute thing. And here we are out there with a chance to win with a game to go. I think I started 255, 235. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to realize the pressure's on, the wheels are starting to fall off. Missed a 10 pin in the first frame of the third game. Then I chopped at 6-10, I think, twice that game. It still came down to the 10th. We had a chance to either take over second or first at the time. I ended up opening again in the 10th for 158, and I just remember sitting there. I think we took over third and ended up fourth that year, which I remember sitting there for about an hour after we got done, just thinking, man, I want redemption. This isn't me. I need to be more prepared for these situations. And I think that was a big moment in my career saying, hey, you need to get better. You need to be able to block this stuff out. You need to be able to focus one shot at a time, not worry about what's going on. And at the time, I knew what was leading in team. In 2011, I didn't pay any attention to what was going on, what was leading. And I think that was a big difference in that time. And I was a few years older, had a few more tournaments under my belt, a few more pressure situations. But yeah, the Billings tournament, I think, is what got me committed to going every year, regardless of who I have to bowl with.
Okay. And again, with 50,000 bowlers every year, certainly every bowler has a story. Often we get to tell the stories from the scoreboard and the leaderboard, but not always the behind the scenes things and the human interest things, and some great stuff there. Things that we just don't forget. The wisdom teeth. It's unfortunate timing, but makes for a great story 20 years later. And then knowing what you missed in what game in 2004, that just shows the passion and the impact that this event has. And I think it sounds like, even though all events-wise, that was not one of your best years, experience-wise, it's something you'll never forget. Perhaps your first taste of success at the OC and that first close call. And by now, you don't get many opportunities at the top of the leaderboard at those Eagles. Talk about that 2004 event again, whether it was it sounds like it was more of a motivator than a deterrent at that point. Your first visit to the National Bowling Stadium, but maybe a reason to want to come back and do even better the next year.
Oh, it really was. And there were some scheduling conflicts that unfortunately that team couldn't really get back together the next year. So I ended up putting another team together. But yeah, that defining moment of realizing how close I was to getting an Eagle, going into it not having any expectations. I think if that didn't happen, I'm not sure 2011 would have happened. I put more work, more practice, more preparation into my ability to put myself in, to compete under pressure situations.
All right, now talking about the NBS in Reno, certainly the mecca of bowling, the Taj Mahal of 10 pins. Just walking up that escalator, even for the first time, center aisle. We talk a lot about the goosebumps and the butterflies, and there's really no venue like it in the world. And then you came back in 2007. Obviously, there's a theme here. The National Bowling Stadium, that's where the event was in 2011. The ultimate redemption, absolutely. But 2007, things went disastrously bad for you. Any particular reason anything happened that year? Just didn't match up right. 1655 was the number, and Ferris, I'm sure we'll have some questions about that year and those scores. And coming back off that 2004 event, that had to be a tough 2007 for you.
So yeah, that's when I started realizing that we have a love-hate relationship with the National Bowling Stadium. I've had some really good moments there, and that was not one. I actually felt, I think, maybe overconfident. The day before we bowled team event, I took over, I think, second at the time at the singles in the Bowler's Journal. I was bowling really well. Came in with pretty high expectations, and the lights came on, and I might as well have left at that point. It was one bad shot after another. I think I missed 3 spares a game. Just couldn't ever get the ball to do what I wanted to do, and when I did get lined up, I wouldn't strike. So it was one of those. But at that point, I was starting to get old enough where I said, okay, just leave this alone, get them next year. You still have some things to improve on, maybe make some better equipment choices. I think I only took 4 balls with me that year, and you don't always want to say that's the reason, but what if I'd have brought this? What if I'd have done that? But those kind of years are going to happen. You're going to get overwhelmed. Things aren't going to. You get one chance. That's one of the great things about this tournament. You show up, do your best, and you're done for till next year.
Well, and that kind of answers what my question would have been about those numbers I was going to ask. You said that you couldn't find the right motion, that when you did get to the pocket, you couldn't carry. And I was going to ask, do you think your biggest issue that year, it wasn't the physical or mental game, it was an equipment issue? And that's when you said that that was one thing you kind of looked back on and thought you needed to reevaluate. You only took 4 balls. Back then, what was your process for determining what bowling balls you were going to take? Did you have a process, or did you just say, hey, these are the balls that are in my bag right now, this is my arsenal, and I'm taking it?
Well, most years I try to take at least 5, 2 pin up, 2 pin down, and a spare ball, and one of the pin ups will have surface, one will be shiny, one of the pin down will have a little surface, and one will be shiny. But that year I felt like the down lane reaction, I could not get it. Either wanted to check early or check too late. If I tried to get around it, it would go long. If I tried to go square up, it would hook. And some years my ball speed just is not a good match with what's needed out there. I max out at 14, 15 miles an hour, and there's times you need to create your own, push, get a little bit more ball speed to get the ball to get down the lane farther before it hooked. And that was just a year that it was a total, I probably would have been better off throwing my spare ball all 9 games, but that wouldn't have helped anybody else.
Well, now you mentioned those years are going to happen, and that's absolutely true. It's how you bounce back, certainly. Coming in prepared, things got progressively better for you in the years that followed, and then we get to Reno in 2010, and you had a great year, 1940. Certainly by my standards, 1940 is a phenomenal performance, and then 2011. We're going to set the stage here before we're joined by Emil, our guest for today. He's going to tell the story a little bit differently as we were in different places in 2011, but that's the year that kind of almost sort of didn't happen for the National Bowling Stadium. Originally, that event scheduled for Wichita, Kansas, and some things happened with the convention center there, so that ended up not being possible. And then the big bowling stadium that was going to come about in the Orlando area in Florida, which was slowed and then stopped by the economy in 2008, 2009. So Reno stepped up huge. Reno, a big part of Open Championships history. We're able to make it happen for us in 2011. First time we've ever gone to the same host city in back-to-back years, 10 and 11. And luckily we did for Matt Weggen, of course. That's when things happened. But to set the stage a little bit, Daniel Ferris was not there. He was off growing up a little bit still. And that was the year also that Aaron Smith decided he was going to take the season off. He wasn't going to come to the Open or Women's Championships, so that put us in Reno for the Open Championships, Syracuse for the Women's Championships, and some miles for me to travel that year. But on that day, the week that you were in town, Matt, is when Matt McNeil also was bowling. So he was there as the defending all events champion, had just broken the record the year before. 23-26 was the number. He was going to be on our live stream for his doubles and singles, and what a performance he put on that day. Shot 300 and 822, and it just missed taking the lead in all events. And that was the day that you bowled your team event. So I guess my first question there, before we get into your huge performance the next day, was did you get a chance to talk to Matt or see Matt bowl a little bit while you were there getting settled in the National Bowling Stadium?
Yeah, I guess just a little backstory before I get into that is I met Matt. He was living in Minnesota, bowling some scholarship tournaments down in Iowa. He was starting his junior career when I was kind of ending mine, but he was still beating up on me when I was 20. But I did get to talk to him a little bit. I think he was coming in as we were leaving or something like that. And I wished him good luck, that type of thing. But you always expect anytime he's on the lane that something's going to be, he's going to do something noteworthy, something that hasn't been done before. And he didn't let anybody down that year either. He put on a heck of a show. I was kind of focusing that night, just what do I got to do to improve the next day? I think I had 6:30 in team with one open, and ended up being the only open of the weekend for me, which ended up being great. But at the time, I think our team shot 32-40, I think. And at the time, that was 30th to 4th. I think we ended up 50th place or something like that. But, I felt I left, being the anchor on the team, being low on the team that year, I felt like I let them down. I left some pins out there, and I needed to find a way to improve and bowl better the next day. I mean, that was my thought is, I know I'm close. I'm hitting the pocket, getting a lot of 9 counts. What do I got to do tomorrow to right the ship, to knock them down?
Now, back in those days, it was one oil pattern for the entire event. So as you said, you had some time to kind of to rethink things and the strategy, the equipment, whatever it was that didn't go quite right. 636 in team is a good number. That's a satisfying performance, sure. But if there's some things that can go better, certainly you want to make those changes. That year, the oil pattern was 41 feet, a little bit higher volume at 27.35 mils. And again, all 9 games bowled on the same oil pan. There it is. If you'd like to take a look at that, folks at home. And for doubles and singles as well in those days, only the 7 a.m. squad was bowled on the fresh lane conditions. So there was the opportunity to come in and see who was bowling on the pairs that you were going to see what was happening out there prior to your doubles and singles event. And then to make it even tougher, after doubles, you flip-flopped to the next door pair to bowl singles. So even if you think you figured it out in doubles, a whole new challenge comes up in singles. But Matt, tell us, after that night, that performance, we're obviously busy working on some of the McNeil stuff, the performance that he put on the live stream, the 300, 800, the stories, coming within a few pins potentially of being the first person to win all events back-to-back. You were under the radar, and rightfully so at 636. Certainly, again, a good number, but not an all events watch at that point. So we're doing our thing, you're doing yours. But when that's over, what did you do to change things up for doubles and singles the next day, and how did you get to the point where you were when you walked back in the building?
Well, I think I found something toward the end of team event that first 3 games. I was throwing, I think, a Brunswick Alpha Max, something pretty rolly, and it was getting to the pocket consistently, but it wasn't snapping. The 6 wasn't doing its job and kicking 10 out. So I had another asymmetrical ball with me, an Storm Anarchy that was about the same drilling in it, pinned through the ring finger, and I think I finished with the last 4 or 5 the last game of team. After I'd moved in, I was trying to play in between 8 and 10, just trying not to. I don't like getting very deep in team because you start messing with other people's ball reactions, and I tried to not give the pocket away. But I knew going in the next day we were bowling, I think, the 1040 squad. So there was one squad in front of us and another squad behind us. So I knew maybe that I'd be able, with that much bowling, I might be able to start close to where I finished and with the same ball. But what I didn't realize is that the heads were kind of burnt up when we started, meaning I had to kind of project the ball to get it down the lane. But another thing that shocked me is the hold that the group that bowled in front of us had created. I know some were throwing reactive, some were throwing plastic, some were throwing urethane. Usually you don't know what that's going to do. You didn't know if there's going to be hang spots, were not expected, but all of us could hit the pocket. But what I was able to do that second day, I couldn't do the first day. If I hit the pocket, it was a strike. I mean, I was tripping 4s, messengers, you name it. I think for the 6 games that day, I was 430 some over, and next high on the pair was 80 over. I was able to create something that just the other guys couldn't do. And then some of the guys that bowled really well the day before had about what I had the first day.
In my career, going back to 2005, I've been at the Open Championships for thousands of days, some for most of those days. On this particular one, for your doubles and singles, after we wrapped up with all the McNeil stuff the day before, I was on an airplane. I was headed to Syracuse for the Women's Championships, and the USBC Queens was coming up, so I was going to spend some time there. Left everything in Reno in the capable hands of Emil Williams Jr. He was second year in the PR department. There he is, the ultimate prankster. So obviously, at that point, it's very hard to believe anything the man says. And I'll tell you what, unbelievable. But I'm running through this Chicago airport at his hometown. I'm sprinting because getting from Reno to Syracuse, a little bit of a challenge. And I get a voicemail on my flip phone, whatever it was back then. And I'm trying to listen, going down the escalator. And he's telling me, he's like, Matt just bowled this. And so I figured out, I slowed it down. Matt Weggen, okay, I got you. 806 in doubles, right, was the number. Okay, great, 800. You know what to do. You know the story, the video, the whole deal. He goes, no, that's not it. Hold on. And he keeps talking. And he's like, and then in singles, 279, 290, 257. Okay, so 826. And I'm like, that's impossible. Nobody in the history of this tournament has ever shot back-to-back 800s. I'm not sure. I think I know Matt Weggen, but I'm not 100%. And, of course, there's a backstory on Emil being a prankster. We'll get to that later on. But it was, in fact, true. For the first time in tournament history, a bowler had shot back-to-back 800s, and that got you to the lead in regular singles and regular all events. You snuck in. You just got there. What a day. What a performance. First, let's hear from Matt just about the on the lanes feelings. And you said when Emil came up to you after, you weren't even sure why.
Well, this was really uncharted territory for me. I was getting high fives and hugs everywhere, and people, I didn't realize at the time the stands were packed back there. I wasn't sure what was going on. I knew I had bowled well. I knew I'd had the back-to-back 800s. I didn't know what was leading what. I remember Emil coming down saying, hey, when you get your stuff put away, I'd like to talk to you. And my first thought was, why would you want to talk to me? What did I do? I was ready to go celebrate, get the party started. But yeah, it was pretty, one of those feelings. I remember when it finally hit me later that night. It's like, I can't even imagine having back-to-back in a state tournament or a league or something, but doing it on the biggest stage that I bowl every year. It was all that hard work, everything that I had done up to that point seemed worth it. I could finish last in every tournament from here on out, doing what I did that day, regardless if the scores held up. You can't say it enough. It's just an amazing feeling.
Now, talk about the first one. I mean, 800 at the Open Championships, that is a huge deal. You had to know at that point in your career what a significant performance that was. So just describe that moment, finishing that off, 806, you got in there, but then you still had 3 more games left.
Yeah, I had the double. The main thing I remember, I had the double in the 10th to shoot 800, and I felt bad for my doubles partner at the time, Scott Carpenter, who I think had beaten me the last 2 or 3 years when we bowled doubles. So I guess he was due to dump me, but he bowled really, really well. I think he had one open for 580 that set, and I remember him just, whenever you're bowling doubles with somebody, if one guy's doing well, the other guy isn't, it usually makes it worse because the other guy's pressing, trying to help out your partner. But I do remember throwing a double in the 10th. I think I labeled both of them to shoot 800. And my thought was, all right, calm down. We got 3 more games to go. When we moved to the next pair, all I told myself, I'm going to start where I finished and make an adjustment off of there. And I remember my first shot, I almost left the 8-10. They both kind of were there and they fell. I was like, wow, this pair is a lot tighter down lane. Most years I could tell the ball was coming off my hand as good as it could. I knew I was in complete control of my game at that point. So I went ahead and moved a little bit to the right, tried to keep my break point where it was, but not give the ball away as much. And not only did it worked better. I think if anything, my look was even better on that pair, and I was making better shots. And just to shoot, I think I went 279, 290, and I had a shot at 848 going into the 10th that last game, and that was probably the worst shot of the day. I cut it short. I think I left the 3-6. And at that point, I didn't even know I needed to make that. If I don't make that, I don't take the lead in anything. So I made that, moved a little bit on the fill ball, struck, and for 826, and then it was just crazy.
I want to ask about something real quick here, Matt, and that's you said when you went to that second pair, it was a little tighter down lane, the 8-10 fell late, and you made a small move right. That's one of the hardest things for a bowler to do, whether they're staying on the same pair in an event, switching pairs, switching bowling centers, it doesn't matter. Moving right for right-handers is not something that's normal. Did you have to talk yourself into that, or did you just say, I'm going to do this, and it's either going to work or it's not? How difficult was that decision for you?
At that point, it wasn't that hard. I mean, I knew I had a little bit of hold to the left. I'm what I'm called a tweener. I like having area to the left more than I have area to the right. If you give me a little bit to the left, I feel more comfortable. My mistakes are usually going to be left. And I think the few mistakes I did make that day that I didn't strike on left me something I could make, and that was a huge key. And I didn't move right a ton. I mean, I just moved moved enough just to change that angle. And if anything, it went from kind of hook and setting to continuing to drive through the pins. And it's hard to say my carry got better, but it really did.
Right. Now, Matt, I have been fortunate to witness some incredible moments at the Open Championships. And in those moments, for me, my heart's racing. I'm running all over the concourse, running through the mental checklist. What do I need to do? The video, the calling the media, all the things that we do after the fact. Now I want to hear from Emil in that moment, potentially at that point in your career, the biggest thing, well, the second biggest, maybe tied for the biggest with McNeil the year before. You've been fortunate as well, but what are you thinking? You're the lead guy in that moment, and you got the checklist going, but describe it from your side, and how much fun was it delivering the phone call that nearly made me fall down the escalator?
Well, at first it was just kind of business as usual because, as you said, at that point, I kind of, you know what to do when honor scores are shot. So I have that in mind. I know that's going to happen. I give you a call certainly because you should know, just in case somebody, gives you a call later. Hey, you didn't know about, Matt Weggen's 806 or just in case. And then, of course, as Matt, first of all, Matt, how are you, by the way? It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
It's been a while. And so, he ends with 279, shoots 806, and as he just said, switches pairs, and then he starts with 279. And then I go, okay, well, this is pretty good. And the fan in me is like, obviously I should be watching this. And then there's like a small glimpse of like, okay, let's keep in mind of the all event situation. First with the 806, you're talking about doubles, and he talked about that as well. But I knew we weren't going to get there, so it was about then does he have a chance at all events, and he's going to need a lot. And then 79 happens, and then he keeps striking, and then it's 290, and then I'm like, okay, here's some uncharted territory, if you will. At this point, I feel that, as you mentioned, Matt McNeil, I saw in 2010, and also split time in another department in 2010. So in 2011, I was like full-fledged media. And so I'm like, well, this is it. This is, if there's ever a moment, right, you got the prove it moment, if you will. Here's my moment. Like, I can't let Matt down. He's off and running. He's going to take care of the women's championships. He probably didn't think that the first day he'd leave that, things are going to, or bleep will hit the fan, if you will, and Matt Weggen is about to do his thing. And, as Matt mentioned, all the folks in the crowd, spectators, bowlers, all watching. And I do recall that last shot where he did go high, and it was like a gasp of air, mainly because he stopped striking, which was odd at that point. And then B, nothing was determined, as he mentioned at that point. So that was, a very important frame, very important spare. And then, he does his thing, and I go down to him, and, normally I'm a very reserved individual. So I'm sure I said it the way he just described it. I don't think I wanted to be too abrupt, if you will, but it's also good to know that I did do my job properly. And he waited, of course, and we did the video, of course, the story and everything. But it was that moment for me. I had a few moments, I thought, the previous year where you understand the event, you understand the Open Championships, what it's about, what it means to everybody. That was my first time working the event. I bowled it for the first time in 2010, so I understood it kind of in and out at that moment. And but even then, you couldn't think of what was going to happen, and essentially what transpired: back-to-back 800s to win 2 titles.
By the time I got to the next gate for the next flight, you and I had talked, and I believed you at that point. And I was frantically walking around, not being able to do anything, not being able to share the news or celebrate or do anything. And I knew full well that you had it under control. You knew the procedures and the checklist, and you can't help but want to kind of be that overbearing big brother. And but again, got on the plane knowing it was all good. We had some great footage of it. We had a great interview, a great story, and some great memories. And I think Mr. Ferris has some of that queued up right now. So we'll take a look before we get Matt Weggen's feelings on that day and when it all started to finally click.
And I'll tell you, my first thought essentially was just to, make sure I get the 806. Let's get a lot of B-roll, and then he kept striking.
Yeah, one thing I'm proud of myself here is I don't get too overreact. I don't get too pumped up. Get your blood pressure too going. I stayed even keel throughout the whole thing. I don't know how, but I did.
I was going to ask how, because I'm sure there are a lot of players who would love to have been in your position. And if they get there, how do I keep my head on a level playing field and I don't get too excited, for every strike, and I don't get too dejected if I do miss? You didn't miss that often in these 2 sets, obviously,
I think it came down to just bowling with a good group of friends. They knew what to say to me, what not to say to me, left me alone when they needed to, talked to me when they needed to, and I think that was huge. I think without those guys being there, this doesn't happen.
So kind of like when a pitcher is in the middle of a perfect game, going into the 7th and 8th inning, sometimes his teammates in the dugout will just like sit 30 feet away from him. Your teammates in this instance weren't leaving you alone. They were just keeping the conversation fluid and normal and jovial and just keeping it calm down there.
Yeah, as you can tell, they're starting to get pretty animated towards the end when it was getting, I think that was the 8th or 9th frame, but when I threw that last strike there. But I think we had been around enough of each other in big moments and other tournaments that I turned it almost into I was bowling a league session with these guys, and that's when I kept my demeanor not too high, not too low. And that last shot we kind of let loose a little bit, and that's when the high fives and hugs started going. But I think that's a big lesson. Is I don't know if I could ever bowl that tournament just to fill in for somebody and feel good about it. I think you want to bowl with the guys you're comfortable with, bowl with friends if possible, and that makes these type of moments even that much more special.
Well, and not to get too incredibly technical, but the first time that I watched that video, watching your ball motion down lane, I thought, man, that ball's holding the pocket pretty strong. Like, it's not jerking at the end of the pattern the way we expected. So what you saw with that pair being tighter in your singles event, certainly there's that ball. How about it? I was going to ask if you still had the ball.
Hasn't cracked on me yet.
Do you still use it?
I do not. No.
Oh, smart. Good. But yeah, it's certainly, we saw that down lane hold you had, and that helps a lot if you are, like you said, a player who would rather miss left than right.
Yeah, with Anarchy being a shiny asymmetrical ball, I was shocked that it was able to just kind of lay there as it did. A lot of times on house conditions, it's way too angular to use, and it matched up. I think there was just enough friction up front for it to grab and then just kind of lay off on whatever was pushed down for us to begin with by the first group. And the rest was just me. I didn't move a lot during the 6 games. I remember just chasing it in a little bit when I tripped the 4-pin. But, a lot of times at Nationals, when you realize it's time to move, you leave a big 4. Or, that's your opening. Well, for me, it was tripping a 4. That's all you can hope for. Get those breaks and take advantage of them and make the moves. Like I said, physically, it's probably the best that I've ever felt at Nationals, or maybe any time throwing the ball.
Now, Cannizzaro, I want to ask you, and I can't let E get away from this without a throwback to himself. You mentioned that E was known as kind of a prankster of the PR department. What's the story behind that?
Well, really, it was just one prank, and I'll never forget it because I don't let things go.
No, he doesn't.
It was the year before. We're just a month and a half into the 2010 Open Championships. Aaron Smith already had departed for the Women's Championships in El Paso. And there's a thing about the OC that most people don't realize is that there's really only 2 days at the event. There's opening day, and it's opening day because there's Joe Bowler and there's celebration and there's a lot of things going on. And then after that, it's just the Open Championships. And the other day that matters is the day when there's no more bowlers. So you come in every day, you do your thing, and eventually nobody's going to be there. That's how you know the event's over, right? So by the time we get to April, May, you really don't know what day it is. You're doing what you do. You're doing what you love. You're enjoying moments like this, seeing great performances, meeting great people. But really, you're not looking at the calendar. You don't know what's happening. So the goal for me was to get in the office and get situated before the end of the 7 a.m. squad. That way, in case anything happens on paper, anything that might have been missed, we're ready for it, no matter what. So the workday starts around 9 a.m. But just before that, I get a call from Aaron Smith, and he lets me know, hey, it's Emil's birthday. In case you want to do something cool, just want to let you know if you want to, celebrate or just say happy birthday or whatever, because, you're trying to be a nice guy, a good leader in the department. Absolutely. There's a Smith's grocery store on the way to work. I stopped in. I got a few minutes. I grabbed a cake for the guy because, I want to be welcoming. He's only a couple months into his career with us. And I know that he doesn't like chocolate as well. So I get another cake, another piece of white cake for him to enjoy during the festivities. And I get there and I put everything away and I let everybody know, everybody in the whole entire place, it's Emil's birthday. Make sure you come by. He comes in at 5 o'clock. We're going to celebrate. We have cake. Everybody just come by, give your cards, whatever you want to do. We have some time. And he walks in, he sees the office, happy birthday. Of course, what do you expect? And he just busts out laughing, falls on the ground. Like, he just can't believe it. And here I am trying to be nice. The guy's got cake. He's got his own cake and a huge celebration. All the employees, everybody in the building walking by, happy birthday, happy all night long. And eventually he let us all in on the big secret.
Well, I mean, first of all, you should have just been paying attention to the date. I mean,
not a chance.
It was April 1st, and you can't believe everything you see on Facebook. So really, it's Aaron's fault first and foremost.
It was
first
on
and
Facebook,
foremost.
so it was real.
So yeah, I changed the birthday or my birthday on Facebook to have an April Fool's joke. I didn't know that obviously Matt would have so much compassion and be such a great leader that he would go out of his way and get everyone involved to have or give me a proper birthday party, if you will. But I don't think he even let me have the cake afterwards. Like he was upset. Like this dude was like perturbed. I'm like, bro, it's just a joke. It's a joke.
I was ready to let everybody have cake, and you said I sit there and watch us enjoy it after that. But it was on Facebook, so you want to check something out, you go to Facebook. And it's real. It was there. So good job for you. But I'll never forget that. Absolutely not.
That is the reason I could understand why when I called and left a voicemail initially, you're a bit skeptical. But no, that was real news. Matt Weggen was really resetting the record books at that time.
There you go. And Matt, you came off the lanes. You knew what a big deal it was, what you accomplished with the 800, and then of course the second 800. And then Emil was there. There was a lot of paperwork involved at that point. You saw the crowd form while it was all happening. At what point did it all start to sink in? And did you realize, or did you understand what exactly you had just accomplished in all of its entirety?
It wasn't until Emil gave me that interview when I was still trying to process it. You could tell how nervous I was in that interview. I think I repeated myself every time I answered the question. I said the same thing twice. But when I got done, my phone started ringing off the wall. I was, getting people that were there at the stadium to come in the bowl. We're hearing about it, coming up, talking to me. And I'm not used to that kind of stuff. It's not anything. I'd really rather not have the attention. I mean, it was good attention, but not understanding that the tournament had been going on that long and nobody had ever done what I had just done. It's hard to really put it together, saying, wow, you were able to do something that how many great bowlers have been out here and haven't been able to do. Is your day, enjoy it.
All right, now, still, you're one of just 3 bowlers in tournament history with 2 800s on the tournament lane, or multiple 800s on the championship lanes. We already mentioned Matt McNeil being the other. I would test these guys to see how good of a teacher I really am, to see if either one can tell me who the third one is. I'll give you a chance, and then we'll move on and talk a little bit more about what came after this day in April.
I would simply say that my age has now defined me, so my memory is just not that good anymore.
I will say, I hope I don't butcher the last name. Is it John Socha?
It's John Socha.
Yeah.
Very good. There you go. So I have accomplished something as well. I've taught you guys stuff, so that's the important thing in our department. The goal is to learn something every day. And we do that. We try to do that. And now the rest of the process, Mr. Weggen, is possibly harder than actually knocking down the pins. That's waiting, especially in the technological area. You're an IT guy, so online leaderboards, message boards, social media. What was the wait like? You bowled in April. The event didn't end until July.
Well, I think Tom Petty always explained this the best. The waiting is the hardest part. And the first few weeks, not so much. I would go out there maybe once or twice a week, look to see, how the scores were in comparison to when we left. And, every now and then somebody shoot a 780 or I think there was a couple small 800s, but as it got closer and it's like, wow, this could really happen. Yeah, I was on there way more than I should be. And there was a few close calls down the stretch, but I had decided after I left that, hey, what I did, I don't even care. I don't care if it finishes outside of the top 5. Just a day that I can cherish and appreciate my whole life. And regardless of the win, it was something that chances of anything like that happening again to me or anyone, aren't high. Anybody can have their day. You had Ron Vokes on last week, and him shooting 857 and not winning was more crazy to believe than my 2 scores, 2268 and 826 holding on. But fortunately, that was the right year to have those numbers, and the rest is history.
Well, you did get there, and 2011, a little bit high scoring. We had a record number of 800s at 16. Of course, as you mentioned with Ron Vokes, you just never know. You can never get too confident. But the call finally came, and that is one of our favorite parts of the entire year, to be able to be a part of those calls, to hear Dwayne Hagen make those calls, congratulate the champions, and you got 2 calls in one. Tell us about that phone ringing on that day. Did you know that was the final day of the event and that call was coming? Did you know anything about the process, and what was it like when you finally answered?
I knew the tournament was over, but I didn't know the process. I didn't know what to do. I think I got the call on the July 6th. I think that evening I got a phone call and was told that I had won both events, and I knew I'd won at the time, but that made it that much more real. It's like, all right, this is official. Now we got to plan a party. So I was fortunate enough. The proprietor at the time, Larry Richardson of the Bowling Alley in Muscatine, as a gift to me, they hosted my Eagle party and presented me with the Eagles in August of 2011. And I had a couple hundred people there, friends, family, and had speakers, and it was a big party and one of my favorite days. There's a lot of special people to me there, including my dad. They're no longer with us, that I can look back at those videos and pictures and yeah, it was awesome.
All right, now Emil, before we let you go, we'd like to hear from you about your feelings on that day. Of course, you were part of the entire process, and to be able to see it through, and to be part of those phone calls in July, and to hear Matt Weggen on the other end of the phone becoming an official 2-time Eagle winner. Can you describe? You got the calls the year before, and here you are, full time in the PR department, making the calls. What was that day like on your end?
Well, I think for me it was just more of a realization that he was able to hold on, if you will. And to that point, I'd seen a lot of great moments, but his moment was kind of my moment at the same time. So it was the one time, and it wasn't the last time, but it was certainly the first time where I was in charge and handled business. And at the Open Championships, obviously we all know that every day is a new day. You have no idea what's going to happen, and that was certainly that day. I was happy. Certainly, I was there to not only witness it, but certainly document it, and really have an opportunity to rehash it at some point. And that day is today. I don't honestly think I've seen Mr. Weggen since that day, so this has been pretty cool to say hello, catch up with him, see how he's doing, and then just to hear the jubilation and getting the call, the win, it's official, and everyone wants to hear the call or get the call, and then when you hear the right voices on the other end, what the deal is, and he's going to be forever a champion, and that will be my forever moment at the OC, besides the pranking situation.
Well, I don't appreciate the pranks at all, but definitely makes for a great story for us. But for you, hopefully that was one of the moments that made you want to come back and be a part of the team, not only at the OC, but at USBC. We appreciate all of your service in the years since. And folks, if you'd like to see more Emil Williams Jr., you can do that twice a week at least on the PWBA podcast, Mondays and Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Emil, any final thoughts before you head out, or any other shows or things you'd like to talk about before you get going to work on them?
Well, thankfully you didn't terminate me, so I did a great job on that day. So that was fantastic. And folks, hang out after the OC gets done back at 4 p.m. Eastern 3 p.m. Central. We'll have a PWBA replay, and we'll be watching the nationwide Greater Cleveland Open from last season. So come get your bowling fix on Bowl TV.
All right, Mr. Williams, thank you for joining us today. Keep up the good work, and happy birthday once again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. And Mr. Weggen, it was a pleasure to see you, and hope to see you at some point in the future.
You as well. Nice seeing you again.
Absolutely.
I see you.
All right, Mr. Ferris, any thoughts on these big days, big numbers, and all these great stories? You've had a chance to experience some on your own to build your own legacy. But as a new guy looking in, can you put any of this into words, just hearing the stories?
This seems like an easy question to ask, but the answer is different from bowler to bowler, no matter how the resumes stack up. This accomplishment at the OC, as it stands, but that year, leading up to that year, I'm sure that was at the top of your list of accomplishments in bowling, but how did you compare it? I mean, looking at your greatest accomplishment before then, whatever that may be to you, how did this stack up next to that? How were your emotions different after getting the phone call that you had won the 2 Eagles and were the only player to have back-to-back 8s in the history of the OC? How did all that stack up to your previous accomplishments?
It's totally in a different universe. I mean, I've won plenty of tournaments. I've won team tournaments, doubles tournaments, scratch tournaments. I've averaged 270 in tournaments. I've done a lot of different things, but to me, I guess it was all about the stage of where it happened at. I know you had Ron Vokes on last week. I mentioned that the funny thing, I had 857 the same day he had 857 at Nationals. I had it at Iowa State tournament the same day up in 2009. So up to the point, that was one of the highlights of that was a bigger stage, being able to string strikes, but. Besides, finishing fourth out there in team in 2004 was a big one. A few different scratch tournaments that I had won over the years. Couple 12, 16 game formatters that I won. But to me, those are over here, and this is kind of on a pedestal.
Now, before we get talking about 2012 coming back and defending those 2 titles, I want to ask, you sent us a little bit of your resume, your bowling resume, before we started the show. And it lists a 5-time Iowa State champion. I've got to ask, how much inspiration did you draw from the 1979 Iowa State bowling champion, Roy Munson?
None. Although that's one of my favorite movies. But no, I decided to bowl with some pretty good players. We built a super team that year when we first started that in 2011. Mike Peters, Joe Roseman, myself, Josh Cantrell, and Scott Rains, and we won 4 years. Four of those 5 titles we won consecutive years.
A couple Eagle winners in there too, as well.
Yeah. That was 2011. That's not going to be topped. That was a year close to my heart, and as I'm getting older, I know those days are less likely to occur. So I'm content with that.
All right, now you come back in 2012. Now, this is something that I haven't had the ability to see with this 2020 being my second year at the OC. I haven't seen defending champions come to the event and try to defend their titles. What was that like for you? The hoopla, the pomp and circumstance of it, knowing you were coming back a 2-time Eagle winner, the regular singles defending champion, the regular all events defending champion. Before you get on the lanes, forget about the pressure of trying to defend. What was it like just coming back to the event, knowing you were going to see your banner, your name, your numbers, and announced in the squad room, out of the lanes, the anticipation of all that? What was it like?
I think I came in a little bit too relaxed. I felt I wanted to enjoy the moment more than anything. I know one of my teammates had gotten there a few days before me and had sent me pictures of the banners, and it's like, oh, I got to see these. I can't. You don't appreciate you winning something at the championship until you get your name stamped on it. So seeing those huge banners, that brought me to reality real quick. It's like, oh man, I hope I don't go out there and lay an egg. But I remember the day we got there, we went over and decided to bowl the Bowler's Journal. It was at another place, and I can't think of the gentleman's name, but the tournament director, as I'm signing in, he looks at me and he goes, "Are you the Matt Weggen?" And I said, "Oh no, oh my goodness!" I said, "I'm not ready for that kind of stuff. I'm just here to bowl." And I think I went out and doubled in the 10th for 5-10 for singles for Bowler's Journal. Yeah, he didn't come up and call me that after that anymore. But no, I had brought my wife down that year in Baton Rouge, and my Aunt Lois had come down to watch, and I tried not to put any pressure on myself. And the ceremony beforehand was just awesome. I got to pick a song to walk out to the tournament director with. One regret I do have is, they gave me the option to say a few words, and at the time I was like, I don't really want this to distract me from the task at hand. I said, we got a team event to bowl. I kind of didn't want to get any more emotional at that point. I'm not an emotional guy, but I thought that could have brought that out of me. So I wish I would have said a few words, to kind of to let everybody know how appreciative I was of the situation. But no, I started with a terrible ball choice that first game. I think I had 162. I think Matt can talk more about why my team event was live streamed instead of my doubles and singles. But I was kind of glad that we got to showcase some of the talented players from the Midwest. At the time, I bowled with some guys from the Quad Cities, and then our cross team was some guys that had won an Eagle in 1990 out of Pennsylvania, and pretty good bowlers. So I was excited they got to do that, but fortunately, as a group, I think we might have got to 3,000 that year, but I went 160, 2-teen, felt close all day. I was frustrated with myself. I think Matt actually wanted me to come up and talk when I got done, and I was at that point I was beyond not upset, just disappointed, thinking that I could not do what I did the year before, but at least follow that up with something more than my 580.
Mm-hmm. So how long did it take? You said you started with a bad ball change, and we're taking a look here at the live stream from your guys. I think this is towards the end of game number 1 of you guys in your team event, but you made a bad ball selection to start. Were you amped up? Was the ball speed up? Was the energy up? Did that affect you a little bit?
The energy was up. I guess I didn't expect. I had a lot more hook than I would have expected on the fresh, and a lot of times that forces. I think all of us moved in a little bit sooner than we should have that year, and it was real easy to not let the ball breathe far enough to the right and go through the face. We did that a lot the first game. I think I started with another anarchy, a pin down anarchy, and it wanted to hook and kind of almost roll out, and my pin carry was really bad. And I think I went to a hammer plague, something pinned down with a matte finish. And I had a pretty good look the last 2 games. Both of those games could have been in the 230s pretty easy, but it was just so easy to cut it short that year.
What did the anarchy make the trip back?
It did. It was way too sharp off the pattern. I had thoughts of throwing it in doubles and singles, and it just did not want to give me the shape I was looking for.
So you ended up getting to a mid to high 1700 in Baton Rouge, and Matt Cannizzaro, you can speak to this. Scores were down in Baton Rouge, were they not?
Definitely. It was a very challenging year, and not a lot of huge scores at all. It took just 800 on the nose to win singles, and certainly just flirting with 1,800. Definitely nothing to be disappointed about at all.
Yeah, I think I had 3 200s in singles and had 615, if that tells you anything.
So your 2 biggest sets, obviously the back-to-back 8s came in singles and doubles. After your team event, you said that 2011 you made an adjustment, but after team event, 4 singles and doubles, and that worked. After shooting 590 in team the following year, at that point you kind of know, all right, I'm not going to defend my regular all events title, which has never been done to this day. So you knew that was probably out the window. How did you try and regroup for doubles and singles on day number 2?
Well, it was a little bit different this time because I didn't have the ball. I didn't feel as confident as I did in 2011 after team event. I felt like I had thrown the ball a lot better that year than I did this year, and I knew I was going to have to find a way to get the ball down the lane, create a little bit more ball speed. I did bring a couple weaker balls with me, and when I would get them to the pocket in doubles and singles, I'd strike flat 10, 4-pin, swish 7. And my reaction wasn't really good enough to make moves off of that because then I wouldn't hit the pocket anymore. And that flat 10 you saw right there, I did that I don't know how many times that trip.
It was one of those flat 10s you talked about.
Yep.
So I know that Baton Rouge wasn't obviously the year that it was before, but you still got to experience what it felt like to come back as a defending champion, a 2-time defending champion. Leaving Baton Rouge, what were your emotions?
It's hard not to feel disappointed. You know you're better than that. You know you're capable of more than that. But you also got to be realistic and say, hey, that was your one shot. You just didn't get it done. The ceremony, being able to share it with my friends again, all of that. That's still my favorite part of every nationals is getting announced as a champion. Yeah, regardless of what I shoot from here on out, they can't take that away from me. So.
That's it. You'll forever be a champion at the OC. Always some designation next to your name on the scoreboard. What is it like walking into the venue and walking down center aisle and walking to the lanes now, post 2011, just knowing that there's some eyes on you and you are the Matt Weggen, absolutely, and forever will be.
Yeah, as exciting as it is, it's hard to calm yourself down coming down the aisle. I mean, I always told everybody the first game I want to have a double clean through 5. That's my goal. I said I don't care if I have a 3 spare, a 5 spare, a 7 spare, and a double. I want to be clean through 5. And it seems like after frame 5, then you can start relaxing and making shots of bowling. But prying it off your hand, those first few shots, I've been there 18 years, and it doesn't seem to get any easier.
All right. Well, hopefully we get to have one more year coming up here in 2020. The tournament, of course, has been moved back to a September 12th start. Have you guys work things out? Are you planning to head our way? I know that time of year is a little wacky for some folks. And are you going to be able to make it and join us in Reno and see the new National Bowling Stadium?
Right now it's up in the air. I got to make a couple phone calls and figure out what the game plan is. We were planning on coming. We rescheduled a couple different times. And, that time of year is tough for a lot of people that I bowl with to get out, and even me. And it's tough to take vacation in the fall and then right away back again in the spring. So I know we're booked for April 2021. Hopefully I can get out there for my 19th consecutive year here in 2020, but we'll see what happens.
Now, when you come back to Reno, and especially going up the tall escalator to the 4th floor where the lanes are, what are the feelings when you touch down in the city and when you get to take it all in? Just knowing that such a big piece of history happened and you were a part of it.
It's my favorite venue by far that we bowl. I'm not crazy about the city of Reno, but the stadium is just, when you walk in and they've got those Hall of Fame plaques in that other part of the room, and it just feels like this is where you want to be. I wish I could get there more than once a year to bowl in it. Whether it was a different tournament or whatever. It feels special. It feels like the type of place that tournament should be hosted every year.
All right. Well, certainly we hope you can work it out and join us in 2020. If not, we always have the sub board. I think if somebody saw a 2-time Eagle winner on the sub board, they'd be absolutely jumping at the opportunity to be a part of that for sure. As we get back to normalcy in the world here, Mr. Ferris, let's kind of recap a little bit on what to expect coming up. We're supposed to head to Reno again September 12th to November 21st. As our final team date. The event will end the next day. We'll get to make those calls. Still a lot of time between now and then. Tell us, again, the anticipation for you going in there for your second year and now getting to see it all come around from the folks you talked to last year to being presented on the lanes and, just your first full circle.
I remember last year, as we bring Matt back into the stream, I remember last year, each time I was tracking potential lead change, I felt the goosebumps and the nervousness and the anxiety in a good way, not in a bad way. Because like you, like Matt, our guests, and like everyone else we've had on the show, we have a love for this sport, and it's going to be double time if I'm tracking a defending champion that has a chance to defend a title. You're talking about some of these events and these divisions where titles have never been defended before. So if we have someone making a run at regular all events, regular team, it's going to be a huge deal. And I can't wait to get back. And I can't wait to meet guys like Matt Weggen, who I've never met before, and put a name or put a face to a name and a voice and a handshake, or maybe an elbow bump in this COVID-19 world, whatever it may be at that point with social distancing and what's going on. But I'm looking forward to meeting all these people and hopefully having a reason to take their picture after they get done bowling.
All right. Now, Matt, before we get going, can you think just real quick off the top of your head, when what comes to mind when we say your very favorite things about the Open Championships and any advice to those newcomers who are the next 2002 Matt Weggen?
Sure. Yeah. I love walking down the center aisle. I like meeting up in the squad room, hearing the announcements, and like I said, those first few frames of team event. Team event's my favorite by far. I know my Eagles are in singles and doubles, but I hope one day I get an opportunity at a team Eagle. I think that would be very special. And as far as first timers, I mean, you have to. It's tough to slow things down, but you have to get yourself into where you're almost in a league situation. I'm here to have fun with this group of guys, regardless of how I bowl. This is a vacation. I'm going to have fun. You're going to take something from away. You know, that 1762 I had in Baton Rouge, if anything, I took away, I need to get better. I need to make some improvements. I need to find a way to be able to repeat shots when my look isn't there. I've talked to too many bowlers that have went there once, didn't bowl well, and want to eliminate it from their mind and don't want to go back. It's like, you know, that to me, the competitor in me, if anytime you fail at anything in life or bowling, you want to figure out what you can do to, when you're in that situation again, you don't fail. And for me, it's taking one shot at a time. Spare shooting, I practice a lot at spares. You know, you're not going to always strike like I did in 2011, and I know that. You're going to have to learn to manufacture a game out there. But enjoy it. You know, have fun with it. Take guys you enjoy bowling with, long life friends. You know, make it a vacation, and like I said, make sure you take something positive away. Whether you bowl good or bad, make sure you have something positive to take away from the experience.
Well, we definitely appreciate the insight. Some great advice there as well. And you said all the right things. Of course, don't give up. And the best part about the Open Championships is that even if this year doesn't go so well, there's always next year. And we know that because we've had nearly 120 of the events, and we're not going anywhere. Matt, final question for you before we go. As we get back to the normal world here in 2020, what are you most looking forward to doing once you guys are able to get out of the house and just go back and do things?
Well, I'm kind of been giving back a little bit to the sport. My kids are getting old enough where I'm starting to coach them in junior bowling. I look forward to that getting picked back up in August. We like to do a little fishing in the summer. I got a new kayak, like to get that out. Just like to get back to feeling like we're not stuck at house and doing bowling. Anything we can do to as a family outside of the house, we're going to try to do it as soon as they start opening things up here soon.
Sounds awesome. And from many of our guests, it sounds like there's nothing better than a Midwest summer. So hopefully sometime we'll be able to get out there and enjoy some of those cool things as well. We appreciate all of your insight today. And Daniel Farish, any final thoughts before we head out for the day?
No, I just want to thank Matt, as always, for joining us, and I'm looking forward to meeting you, if not in Reno this fall, hopefully this fall in Reno, but if not then, in Las Vegas next year in April.
Absolutely. I appreciate what you guys do for bowling. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. And thanks for being such a huge part of our history and tradition at the OC. Back-to-back 800s in 2011 on the way to the regular singles and regular all events titles, a feat that has only been done once in more than 115 years of tournament history. And sorry I missed it, but the stories that we got out of it are pretty fun as well. Looking forward to seeing you in Reno or Las Vegas as well down the road. Again, we appreciate your time, Mr. Ferris. Great work out there today. And folks, thank you for tuning in once again to the Inside the OC podcast. We'll be back on Thursday with USBC and PWBA Hall of Famer Wendy McPherson. And of course, every Tuesday and Thursday here on Bowl TV at 2 p.m. Eastern. Also, remember to watch the PWBA podcast on Mondays and Wednesdays and the USBC Sport of Bowling Show coming up on Friday afternoons as well. A lot of other great content on Bowl TV, so check the schedule there for some new shows coming your way as well. And we do appreciate it. But you know the drill, and we got to go. So that's the news for now, folks. We'll see you on the lanes.